Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. We're joined by our panel, the Washington Post's legendary Bob Woodward, who needs no introduction. Mark Halperin is managing editor of Bloomberg Politics. Nancy Cordes is our CBS News congressional correspondent. And Jeffrey Goldberg is the national correspondent for The Atlantic. Bob, I want to start with you. You've seen a few committees. What do you make of the Benghazi committee and this hearing this Thursday?
Well, the successful congressional investigations eventually become bipartisan. The Senate Watergate Committee was set up by a vote in the Senate 77-0. Dozens of Republicans saying, yeah, we need to look at this. And now we've got a fractured committee. And so you wind up getting fractured partisan data.
Yeah. You take the fact that it's not been bipartisan, the fact that Congressman McCarthy said what he said, that Hillary Clinton's on the offense, and that Chairman Gowdy showed this morning that he does not know how to frame for the public broad questions. What did the president know and when did he know it? Something that will break through. So I think Hillary Clinton is set up to be as strong and as powerful in this hearing, unless Chairman Gowdy is sitting on some secret than anyone could have imagined.
You know, Jeffrey, Mark makes a good point about this goes down the rabbit hole very quickly.
Right.
And also when you get charge and countercharge and a series of names people don't know. Take us back to 30,000 feet. What's the big question being missed here about U.S. policy? And
well, they're having a hearing about the wrong subject as it relates to Libya. The question facing America is not what happened that night in Benghazi. Those are important questions, and we have to have better diplomatic security, quite obviously. But the question for Hillary Clinton going into this race is, why did you support a Libya intervention that has failed? I mean, in the debate, she owned the intervention. She said it was the right thing to do. Libya is in a state of failure. And that should be what we're debating. The role of intervention, the role the U.S. should be playing in the Middle East in these disintegrating states. And so I think everything is being missed, actually.
Yeah, and the role of what you do after you come in.
Well, that's the key. This was a halfway intervention, and so what's going to be interesting when you go into the general, if she goes into the general, is she going to have to distance herself from President Obama's reluctance to actually fully commit in Libya?
Nancy, what do you make of the Clinton posture going into this? What's their feeling about this?
Well, she's definitely got some wind in her sails, not only because of her strong debate performance, but also because of the gifts that you talked about with your previous guests, with Kevin McCarthy, with Richard Hanna saying that, or at least admitting that this is partly political. The challenge for her is going to be that Chairman Gowdy has said he wants to do 4 rounds of questioning, 10 minutes per questioner. Now, math was never my strongest subject, but with 12 members of the committee, we're looking at 8 hours before you even work in lunch, votes, breaks, and it's very hard, even if you're the most disciplined person testifying, not to have a single moment where you say something that you wish you didn't, especially when you're in hour 7 or hour 8.
She's going to have to bring a sleeping bag. Let's pivot to Joe Biden and the speculation about him. Bob, what does your gut tell you about Joe Biden?
I think when we know actually what happens when he announces this decision, we're going to find out that he's decided both ways. I know for a fact months ago he told somebody very, very close to him that he had decided to run. I think what's happened is then he's undecided to run and maybe decided again, and so we're in this never land. And this, when you peel back decision making, you find that it goes up and down this way and that way. Where it's going to land, probably he won't, but surprise, maybe.
In the calls I've been making, people who have had a view along the way have now reached the heck if I know stage. Mark, I want to ask you about, there's a Suffolk University poll about New Hampshire in which Democrats were asked, do you want Joe Biden to run? 50% said they did not want him to run. Only 36 said they did want him to run. What's your sense of the politics of that?
I think that the static analysis would tell you that if he got in now, it's too late. There's no way to overcome the poll deficits, the fundraising deficits, the organization deficits. My sense is, from talking to people, that the vice president's not looking at this as a static thing, nor is he afraid to end his career with what some would say is a humiliating loss, nor is he moved by Hillary Clinton getting good reviews in the debate or what happens Thursday. If he runs, he will try to run as an incumbent vice president saying, I'm part of an administration you liked, Democrats. I can do better. I can win a general election, and I can talk about economics, middle class, working class economics. I think in the end, he, according to people who've talked to him of late, he is as sharp and as focused and as over his grief as he has been since Beau died. But not all of them are sure he's all the way there.
Nancy, I was struck that John Podesta, the top person in the Hillary Clinton campaign, said in, I think it was the New York Times, he said Joe Biden needs to kind of make a decision, which felt like a movement from where the Clinton campaign had been, which is let Joe make his decision, we're not going to weigh in. What did you make of that?
I think they're absolutely trying to put pressure on Joe Biden, and people who I've spoken to in his inner circle say he doesn't care. He is happy to wait. He's willing to withstand the slings and arrows, not just from the Clinton camp, but others in the Democratic Party who say he needs to get off the fence. He's comfortable waiting if he thinks that that's the best thing for him. Someone else very close to him told me that he has always had a saying that in politics, either you are on your way up or you are on your way down. And even if he's leaning against a run, he knows that the minute he says he's not running, he's on the way down. He's a lame duck vice president who is probably leaving office for good in a year. And that's something that's difficult to say for someone who spent more than half their life in elective politics.
Bob, I want to ask you the question I asked David Axelrod. Is Bernie Sanders' argument is he's going to create a revolution, and that's going to put pressure on Congress. Given how polarized things are now, what's your sense of what chances are that would work?
I think if you really look at what voters are thinking, they want not a revolution, but some sort of peace, and let's do away with a lot of the slings and arrows that are flying around. So my guess, and it's a guess, but it's about most likely outcome, that the Democrats are going to find a progressive candidate, not a revolutionary or radical one, and the Republicans are going to find the person who most resembles Ronald Reagan. Somebody, I mean, this is the new hero in the Republican Party, and if anybody can stand up convincingly and say, I'm most like Ronald Reagan, that may be the nominee.
Just a very quick point on Bernie Sanders. Hope and change turned out to be harder to sell than people thought. Despair and change is probably going to be harder to sell than that, I think. And so there's a top line here that you can't cross.
If he wins the nomination and wins the general election, there will be a revolution. He will sweep the Democrats in control of the Senate. I think he could well turn the House, because he will have such coattails if the voters turn out to vote for Bernie Sanders. So I think he's absolutely right that he would have a mandate to do lots of the things he's talking about. Difficult to get there, but if he got there,
how difficult?
Right. I don't think we're talking about a level of difficulty.
Very, very difficult. But I don't think we should be so cynical as to say that if he found a following, if he got the American people to elect him president of the United States, that he wouldn't then have a mandate to make the kind of fundamental changes he wants to make. I agree, he's a long shot to do both those things.
But if he got there,
yes,
that would be the follow-on.
He would have coattails like you've never seen before.
And in his defense, he's not saying he is going to start a revolution. He's saying that he needs a revolution because he knows that the things he wants to do are going to be impossible to do given this Congress otherwise.
All right. That's it for now. We'll be right back with our panel in a moment. Stay with us. And we're back. Jeffrey, I want to talk about the Republican side of the race. Donald Trump and Jeb Bush are now in a fight over George W. Bush's legacy.
Such a useful fight, right?
Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, well, I mean, as you pointed out, it's quite an interesting moment. Jeb is tying himself to his brother, which might work in the primaries, but if he gets to the general, I think that's death. That doesn't do very much for him. But this